According to Michael Porter, one of the 5 forces that affects the competitiveness and hence the profitability of an industry is the extent of the rivalry among existing competitors. So the companies that are in that industry, how intense is the rivalry among those firms? Okay. So rivalry can take a number of forms. Let's say that you have an ice cream shop. So you're selling ice cream cones and ice cream sundaes, and then you have competitors. And let's say that one of the competitors says, you know what? We're going to run a sale and all our ice cream cones are 50% off. That's one form of rivalry, right? They're directly saying, look, we're going to start this price war. And now you can either respond and say, okay, we're going to decrease our prices by 50% to keep up with you. Or maybe we're not going to do that and we just lose the business and people go to you. Okay, so the more likely you are to have price wars in industry, we'd say that there's more intense rivalry in that industry. But price isn't the only thing that firms can compete on. You could have advertising battles. What if one of the other ice cream stores runs an ad, or they run ads on TV or on YouTube saying that your ice cream sucks and their ice cream is superior? And you say, that's ridiculous. Who would do that? Well, if you go back to the 1970s, Pepsi started running ads about Coca-Cola where they did this thing called the Pepsi Challenge, where they would do blind taste tests and ask people to pick which cola was better, and the majority of people were picking Pepsi. And so the implication there was, hey, Pepsi is better than Coca-Cola. Your product sucks. People would actually, if they didn't know anything about branding, they would choose Pepsi. So that's pretty intense rivalry with this ad battle. But also, you could have new product introductions where they say, okay, let's say you come out with some innovative new type of ice cream. So you come out with some product that you say, you know what, people are really going to love this particular type of sundae. And your competitor says, you know what, there's no patent on that or anything. I'm going to produce that exact same product. And you know what, maybe I'll produce that product and I'll have a cherry on top. I'll do something. I'm going to do whatever you come out with. I'm going to launch a new product that's even better. So very intense rivalry. Every time they punch, you punch back, and so forth. Also, you could have warranties or extra service that is what is taking the form of this rivalry. For example, let's say I say, listen, if you eat my ice cream cone and you don't like it, I will give you your money back immediately. Now the other ice cream shop, are they going to compete with that or whatever? Obviously, that's more of a value proposition to the customer, right? It's a guarantee of quality. For example, Darn Tough socks. I don't know if you're into hiking. So they make socks that are popular for hiking, and they have a lifetime guarantee where at any point in time, if you say, you know what, this sock is having problems, it's torn up or something, you just send it back to them, and they'll give you a brand new pair of socks. Now, the problem with that is you got to pay a lot more for the socks. So you're ultimately, when you buy it, you're paying more than double what you normally pay. But that warranty or the increased guarantee that you're getting of quality, that could also be seen as a form of rivalry. Now the other firms are, do we keep up with this or whatever? So all these things, and this isn't exclusive. There are other ways that firms could compete and attack each other. The more these things are happening, if there's a particular industry where frequently price wars are breaking out and companies are fighting each other, ads attacking each other, and so forth, if this is happening, you're going to have more intense competition and thus lower profits. If there's constantly a price war, price is always going down, then that's going to leave lower profit margins and so forth. It's going to hurt the profit potential of the industry as a whole. So you might be saying, okay, Michael, when is rivalry most intense? Well, Michael Porter has identified a number of situations. Obviously, the more competitors there are, if we're talking about a town that just has one ice cream shop, there's not going to be a price war, right? Because there's just one shop. But if you have 10 ice cream shops, maybe in a place where it's kind of like a touristy place and you have 10 shops on the same block, it would be more likely that they're going to have price wars and be trying to compete with each other. Also, if it's a slow growth industry, if the industry is not growing, then the only way I can increase my sales, I can't just say, oh, well, I'll just wait for the industry to grow. The industry grows by 5% every year, so if I just keep my same market share, my sales will grow by 5%. If the industry isn't growing, then the only way I can increase my sales is instead of taking, let's say this is my piece of the pie, I now say, okay, well, I need to take some of your piece of the pie. And then now my sales is this whole area. So I have to take some of your sales. How do I take some of your sales? Well, maybe I'll reduce the price, or I'll offer some kind of warranty or guarantee that you're not offering, and so forth. Okay. If there are high fixed costs in an industry, remember, with high fixed costs, that's going to increase the break-even point. So basically, if I have really high fixed costs associated with setting up an ice cream shop, then I'm going to have to sell a lot more ice cream in order to be able to cover those fixed costs. And if we think about certain industries in technology or so forth, and sometimes you'll have a situation where the marginal cost of producing an additional unit of product or providing the service is close to zero. The marginal cost is close to zero. The fixed costs are really high. You say, what kind of industry would that be? Well, think about Netflix. They have very high fixed costs of creating content, licensing content, right? Very high fixed costs. But then the marginal cost of having one additional person using Netflix, like they signed up today, it costs them pretty much nothing to add an additional user. So when the marginal costs are close to zero, if you have a number of competitors, that could drive prices down. Okay, that could drive prices down because they say, well, look, the marginal cost is close to zero, so basically whatever I charge, I'm making a profit. So you could have an issue where people start competing on price more heavily. Okay? Now, if there's no product differentiation at all, customers will say, look, if I buy ice cream from your store or the store across the street, it doesn't matter. It's identical tasting ice cream. If there's no product differentiation, then customers are going to be more price sensitive. Then they're going to say, I really care what the price is because the quality is basically identical. So then you might be more likely to have price wars and so forth. Okay? Because the customers will easily switch their loyalty. Now, when you have high exit barriers, an exit barrier could be a number of things. It could be that the companies have assets that are liquid or something, or it could be a thing. For example, with Radio Shack was having serious financial problems, and they wanted to close some of their underperforming stores. But it's not free to close a store. You would think you'd just say, you know what, we're going to close this store. It's not making money. The problem was that they had leases. They had signed lease agreements at those stores. So they might have a 20-year lease. And so if you have a 20-year lease, you can't just say to the landlord, you know what, I don't want to pay my rent anymore. They're going to want some kind of a penalty or something for you to get out of the lease. So if you have some kind of lease, or maybe you have a labor agreement with a union, and so for you to get out of that industry, or to close those stores or whatever, or to drop that product, there might actually be some significant costs. Okay, so when there's high exit barriers, then you say, look, I have to we're going to have to just find a way to compete in this industry because I can't just exit the industry easily. If there's high sunk costs, also this can increase rivalry. In theory, so remember, a sunk cost is just a past cost. You've incurred it, and it is not recoverable. You spent the money, you can't get it back, and so forth. In theory, sunk costs should be irrelevant. We shouldn't be thinking about sunk costs with decision making, but the reality is people do think about them. You will have a CEO say, you know what, even though this product is losing money and we see that this product is a bad product, we can't shut down this product line because we invested $100 million in it, and it would be embarrassing if I were to say, let's shut down the product because this was my idea, and then I would look foolish. So then the CEO says, you know what, we're just going to make this successful. We'll cut the price. We'll do whatever. We'll offer a stronger guarantee. And so when you have things like that happening, where you have it's really difficult to get out of the industry, or there's really high fixed costs, you've got to sell in a large volume just to break even, the industry's not growing. When you have these factors, you're going to have more intense rivalry. You're going to have more likely to have some kind of price war or advertising battles and so forth. And when you have more intense rivalry, there's more competition in the industry, and that's going to decrease the profit potential of that industry.